Hello, welcome once again to Stuff and Things, where I like to talk about stuff and occasionally even things. I'm your good friend Bradley, and today is a Sunday Stuff and Things. And today I am out here in Bellingham Bay. The tide is high, the bay is choppy. I'm getting hit by spray occasionally. It's windy, it is raining. I had to come out here though because I was doing something pipe related. We'll get into that though. On the Sunday Stuff and Things, we have stuff and things to talk about, including upcoming videos, things you can look forward to on Stuff and Things Patreon and Stuff and Things YouTube. I want to talk a little bit about some annoying buzzwords that seem to crop up all the time. We have to talk about the Seahawks a little bit after that game last week. And I want to give an update. People were asking me if I'm still using my Domke F-6 little bit smaller camera bag. And yes, I am. I have it right here. I wanted to go over that a little bit more. Then we'll have your questions, comments, and feedback in hashtag #AskStuffandThings. And we will close the show as usual with the Patreon shoutouts and updates. So let's get into it. Okay, so what can you look forward to on Stuff and Things YouTube and Stuff and Things Patreon? Well, this week we will have on Patreon exclusively the full review of GLP's Abingdon. I did the first impressions video a couple weeks ago, and now the full review is going to be up on Patreon. That'll be posting on Monday, so be sure to check that out. Next week on Patreon and YouTube, we will have the Saddleback Leather Italian Casual belt review, a really cool belt that was sent to me by Saddleback. Saddleback's a company that we have looked at before. Right when the channel started, I did a review of the Saddleback Front Pocket ID wallet, the wallet that I still use every single day. And this belt looks like about the same quality. And then the week after that, again, exclusive to Patreon, we will be doing a first impressions video of a very interesting blend. This is Cornell and Diehl King Cake, a Mardi Gras inspired blend. It's a crumble cake blend. It is topped, it is cased, it is an aromatic blend, and I considered doing I'm not going to like this video for this blend, but I decided just to do a normal first impressions full review cycle for this blend. So check that out as well. Lots of other good stuff coming up on Stuff and Things YouTube and Stuff and Things Patreon. All right, it's time for a little bit of an old man yelling at clouds segment. We like to do these every once in a while on Stuff and Things. I notice I'm not a super online person. I guess I kind of am. I have a YouTube channel and I do stuff on Instagram and everything for my photography, but I'm not like super plugged in on memes. I'm not super familiar with what all the youngs are into. I mean, I'm old, but I'm kind of aware and I pick up certain things. And there are these certain buzzwords that just suddenly get added to the lexicon, and you blink and then suddenly everyone is saying them. And I always wonder how this happens. I know that things can spread around with social media and everything, but it just seems as though everyone has just decided without telling me that this is now what we are going to call this thing. And I always find it strange. Often the words annoy me, but it's not, obviously it's not that big a deal. Language changes. But I just wanted to bring up some of the ones that I have noticed, especially. The first is gut. Everyone is saying gut all the time now. You hear it in advertisements, you hear it on YouTube videos. People talk about gut health. How is your gut health? This is really good for your gut. You need proper, what do they say, gut fauna. You need proper, just everything is gut related. You need to clean out your gut. You need to purify your gut. You have toxins in your gut. Why did everyone suddenly start saying gut? You mean digestive system, I'm assuming. Why is it suddenly gut? I just find it annoying. I don't like the word gut. When I think gut, I think of either a flabby, paunchy stomach, or I think of, you know, somebody butchering an animal and pulling out purple intestines. That's what I think of when I think of gut. I never refer to my gut as in my digestive system, or if I have a stomach ache, like, oh, my gut hurts. Why gut? Next, we have fit, F-I-T. So I started noticing this a while ago, probably several years ago, where occasionally I would see an Instagram reel or something where there would be a younger person scantily clad, and they would be like posing around and they would say fit check. And I assumed, because they were scantily clad, that it was a fitness check. They were showing everybody, look at how fit I am. That's what I thought it meant. And it was only recently, well, maybe within the last year, I was walking around downtown and a young came up to me and said, I really like your fit. And I went, oh, and I realized that it meant outfit. It is the clothes that you are wearing. It is your outfit. Why do we need to say fit? Is outfit, is that one extra syllable that much more makes the word that much more difficult to say? It is confusing for an old person like me when people say fit check and they are basically wearing underwear and posting a reel on Instagram. I just assumed it was fitness because people say, oh, you're very fit. They don't say, previous to like 2 years ago, no one said, oh, I really like your fit. Why has this suddenly become a thing? I don't know. Next, colorway. This is the one that annoys me maybe more than any of the others. I started noticing this when people would talk about shoes or things, and it initially started with like influencers on YouTube, and then it even creeped into actual like manufacturers' websites where I'm trying to order a pair of Adidas or something, or Adidas, and it would say, oh, it comes in these colorways. Why colorway? Like, if I show you this pair of shoes, I would say this is in a green color. The color is green. And there are different color options for this shoe. Why colorway? And why, even if you want to describe something as colorway, why did everyone in the world suddenly decide that, yes, this is the word we're going to use to describe this thing? Just strange. Why does it need to be colorway? It comes in this color, or it comes in these colors. I know I've heard some people say that you say colorway because it describes not just one color, but a whole combination of colors to make a certain look. But you could still say, like, it comes in these colors, it comes in this combination of colors. Why colorway? Then we have another honorable mention here. I just notice more and more and more people using the word addicting as opposed to the perfectly good word that we already had, addictive. Something is addictive. It is not addicting. Addicting is a redundant word. We already had addictive. Addictive sounds better to me. Now, this is just me, an angry old man yelling at clouds. If you have particular buzzwords, and I don't just mean a word you don't like, it has to be something new, something that hadn't been in the common parlance until recently, and something that replaces a perfectly good word, and there is no need for this new word. Let me know in the comments below. All right, so last week I was talking about the Seahawks and how important their game was going to be with the Rams. It was their first meeting with the Rams this year. They both had the same record up till that point. They were both 7-2. They were both doing really well. They were both, I think they were number 1 and 2 in the Prime Football Focus team rankings. It was going to be the big test for the Seahawks. Do the Seahawks have the ability to get one of these really good teams and play them well? And they failed. They failed pretty miserably. Well, not miserably, because they were only within 2 points of winning. And in spite of the fact that Sam Darnold threw 4 interceptions throughout the game, they still, at the very end, were within a field goal of winning. And Jason Myers, the kicker, just missed wide left. We could have won that game. Should have won that game if they had been able to convert just a few or just one of their red zone attempts when they were in the red zone and just had to settle for field goals. So I'm upset that they lost. It's going to make it much more difficult to actually win the NFC West now. They do play the Rams one more time, I think in week 16. But that would have just been amazing to be able to have that game in the bag, be on top of the NFC West. There are all these doubts now about Sam Darnold cropping up, like, oh, he can't play in the big games. He gets frazzled. I think that much of what happened in that game is actually makes me feel a little bit more optimistic. The fact that they did do so poorly on offense, but still came so close. They played amazingly well on defense. They kept Matthew Stafford to, I think, 130 yards of passing, which is amazing. He's usually much, much better than that. So in some ways, it was an encouraging performance. But if they can't tamp down on the turnovers, then I am very worried about them getting very far in the playoffs. So we'll see. They play the Titans this week. I don't want to say that they'll obviously win. They should obviously win. I think the Titans are the worst team in the NFL, but you don't want to take that for granted. And then they have a couple easier games on the schedule. Then they have to play the Niners and the Rams, and there's going to be some tougher games coming up. So I don't know. I'm still optimistic that they can make the playoffs. I'm not totally sure how they're going to do once they get to the playoffs. Next, I did a review of this, of this bag. I think it was about February of this year, so it's been almost a year, 10 months. This is the Domke F-6 little bit smaller camera bag. And this is the bag I got to replace my, I think it was the J10. I have a Domke F2, which is kind of the big classic full-size camera bag. I had a smaller bag that I was using when I was just using my Fuji X100VI most of the time. And this is the bag I got when I wanted to be able to take my film setup with maybe extra lenses or maybe my little digital camera, my Fuji X100VI, and my film camera at the same time. And I really like this bag in the review. And I have been using it every single day since I did that review. I've had a couple people ask me, are you still using this bag? Do you still like this bag? Yes, I do. I love the Domke camera bags. They are my favorite camera bags. I love the look of them. I like how they don't look too obviously camera baggish. They look kind of classic. This looks like it could be, you know, a satchel that was issued to somebody in the Army in 1952 or something. I like the utility of them. This bag in particular just works perfectly for me. So this, like I said, is the F6, little bit smaller camera bag. It has a flap cover like this, 2 clips to close the bag. You have this front pocket that is quite useful and quite, you can get quite a bit in this, pretty big. Right now I've just got a blower in there. I've got my film kit in here right now. So inside, things are blowing. Hold on. Seaweed is falling on me. Let me get this in here so it doesn't blow away. Inside right now, I've got all my film stuff. So I've got my Leica M4 right here. I've got my light meter. There's this little divider on the inside. I can't see on my camera if you can see this. So there's a 4-section divider and then 2 sections on either side. So I've got my camera in one section. I've got my light meter in one of these. I've got my gum in one of them. I've got my film right here. On this side, I've got my little Sunpack Auto 101 flash. I've got some batteries. I've got another roll of film here. It was different, some T-Max. There's also this back flap zipper pocket, which is quite useful. In here, I would keep extra batteries, a lens pen, a lens cloth. If I'm doing digital stuff, I would keep my digital batteries in here, things like that. I use this thing every single day. I carry this with me wherever I go, and it has been holding up amazingly well. You know, there's not any undue wear on this. It rubs against my butt on my pants all the time, and I haven't really noticed anything going on here. Maybe there's a little fraying in this corner, just slightly, but it's fantastic. I love this bag. I use it every day, and I will continue to use it every single day. The Domke F6, little bit smaller camera bag. I did add the Domke, I think they call this the postal shoulder pad, something like that, because I would load this thing up quite a bit and it would get a little uncomfortable on the shoulder. So this helps quite a bit with that. Great bag, love it. All right, gang, but now it is time for hashtag #AskStuffandThings. Remember, if you have a question for me and you would like it answered on the Sunday Stuff and Things, you can tweet at SAT Bradley with the hashtag #AskStuffandThings, but you shouldn't, because nobody ever does, and I would never read X/Twitter anyway. If you are a Patreon supporter, you can write to me via Patreon, go right to the front of the line. You can hit that super thanks button under this video and go right to the front of the line, or you can leave questions, comments, and feedback in the comment section of my YouTube videos. Just like Colin Kelly 279 did for last week's Sunday Stuff of Things. So people were telling me that I need to listen to Aerosmith. I was telling you that I hate Aerosmith. And Colin Kelly says, I have to say, this may be arguably the first time I have disagreed with you. Aerosmith is absolutely awesome. No. Only like pre-1985 or so. I do hate the ones you listed. Listen to Rocks and Toys in the Attic. I'm sorry, Colin. You've been watching this channel for a very long time. You're a good guy. I have to disagree. I do not like Aerosmith. I will never like Aerosmith. I'm pretty confident in that. Next, we have Ultra Classic, who says, I have a Leica 35mm Summicron M on my M6, and it gives me focus from nearly 3 feet from camera lens to infinity. I always strive to shoot, so I print full frame, so framing becomes a pure art. Love the 35mm lens, enjoyed the video. So I was talking about what my preferred walking around focal length is. For me, it's pretty much 35. Could change, don't know, but a lot of people say if you're doing any sort of documentary style or street photography style, you need a 28mm. Oh, you've got to use a 28mm. And I'm sure that can be very useful, but I found that the conventional wisdom on the internet does not always mean that you are going to, it's not going to be as useful for you as everyone seems to think. Everyone makes it seem as though it's universal. I found that personally 35mm was best for me. We have at Bat with Glasses, who says, I'm a big fan of the Nifty 50, such a phenomenally versatile lens, so a 50mm. So we also have a very cool comment from at Gribbly. So I'm going to read this out. It's pretty long, but I think it's useful. Gribbly says, you are 100% correct that online discussions and marketing builds myths around certain focal lengths, and plenty of famous photogs can be cited for whatever focal length you prefer. Leica's early affinity for 50mm was a design choice on the manufacturing end, not necessarily a decision to meet customer demand. Yeah, 50mm lenses are quite easy to make compared to other focal lengths sometimes. Henri Cartier-Bresson and even Ralph Gibson would probably not have gravitated to 50mm if it hadn't been Leica's default. It's probably true. HCB in particular was more swayed by the camera as a whole, but a lot of press photogs with Crown graphics were using 35mm equivalents, and Nikon's F system deployed a 35 1.4 targeted straight at photojournalists. Interestingly, there's no definition of a normal lens except that it's like human vision, but human vision is a hard thing to replicate. It's inaccurate to say a 50mm lens has a field of view similar to ours because our view is much wider and, of course, binocular. In specific terms, 28mm is much better matched to our field of view, but I believe, don't quote me here, that a 50mm presents a better analog of what we see when we focus on something within a scene rather than the whole scene. Our vision is much more like video than photography, and our brains interpolate and zoom for us all the time. And yeah, that's true. If you think of the field of view of a human being, it's almost more than 90 degrees, depending on how deep set your eyes are. And my eyes are pretty deep set, but I can put my finger over here and I can see the movement of my finger. But the thing that I'm actually paying attention to, I think that is more in the 40mm, 50mm range. But yeah, like I can see my finger moving right here. And that's at least 90 degrees. So, or 180 degrees. So we do have a very, very wide field of vision. But if we accept the common statement that a normal lens has a focal length equal to the diagonal of the film sensor, that makes 43mm the right answer. Yeah, I've heard that as well. But almost no one makes a 43mm. Did I say 43 before? And interestingly, that figure is equidistant from both 35 and 50, which makes it very convenient for endless online debate. The nifty 50 trope is largely due to the fact that 50mm lenses are easy to manufacture and thus cheap, so everyone that buys a cheap lens which takes great photos thinks they've discovered a secret. It is indeed a versatile focal length, but it's not magic. And yeah, and also a 50mm would be a kit lens that people would include with their cameras because 50mm lenses are easy to make and cheaply made. And so if you'll find, like if you're looking for a Nikon FE or an FE2 or something on eBay, often they'll come with a 50mm kit lens. So people just bought the camera with the lens and like, oh, this is great. I prefer 35mm. In my youth, I preferred a 28 because I had the knees and the recklessness necessary to get closer to my subjects, and then moved on to the 50 as I got older. But now that I have a kid, I find it useless at a dinner table, and that's where a lot of family photos happen. At work, I use two bodies with a 35 and an 85, but I can risk that minimalist loadout because I've got a 24 and a 135 in the case, and most pros just shoot zooms. So yeah, very good comment. Thank you for that very much. Lots of good things to discuss and lots of food for discussion. Next, we have some feedback from the video I posted about loading film in my Leica M4. At Michael Case 8574 says, it's really quick when compared to the old 3C series cameras where some would set the shutter to bulb and use your finger to manipulate the film through the shutter to facilitate loading. Yeah, I've never loaded or even handled one of the old Leica 3 cameras. They look cool. I'd like to try one sometime. At Pablo Non-Picasso says, the satisfying click and clunk of loading a 35mm film into a camera and ready to go. Don't believe Google, Reddit, or forums when they tell you your camera has cancer and is dying. Sometimes it's fine, and you just need to carry on as the maker suggests. Same for many mechanical things. And yeah, I think the noises that my Leica makes are some of the best, most satisfying noises I have ever heard. All right, thanks for all that feedback. Please keep it coming in. It really helps make the show go. Okay, the wind is picking up, the rain is picking up. We're gonna have to close this out here, but now it is time for the very best part of the show, and that is where we thank our Patreon supporters. Remember, if you would like to support Stuff and Things on Patreon and on YouTube, there is a link to the Patreon below. It is basically what allows me to keep making these videos. It helps pay for the equipment I need, for the things that I'm going to review. It's the best way you can show your support. And if you throw $5 to Patreon, you will get access to exclusive videos on Patreon. You'll get ad-free early access to the YouTube videos, but the exclusive stuff on Patreon is basically all the pipe-related stuff. You'll have an archive of old pipe reviews, all sorts of good stuff on Patreon, so check that out. And every week, we like to shout out those who support the Stuff and Things universe at $25 or more a month, the producers of Stuff and Things. People like Jason Buckner, Arcturus, Ashes of the Phoenix, The Friendly Piper, GreatGrol, Glenn, David Severin, Nicholas James, Kyle Whitmore, Mr. Gibson, Chris Caughey, and Ryan McFadin. And of course, the Maniacs, the crazy people who support Stuff and Things at $100 a month, people like stolid and dependable Bob Magee. And we'll never forget our dearly departed friend and Hall of Fame member, Peter Straub. Gang, what can you look forward to exclusively on Patreon this coming week? Well, on Monday, we will have the GLP's Abingdon review, the full review. And then on Thursday, from the archive, we will have GLP's Quiet Nights, the review I did in February of 2016. Very cool blend, one that a lot of people compare to Esoterica Penzance. It's kind of the closest you can get. Some people say the closest you can get to that blend, which is very, very difficult to get. A lot of people just like Quiet Nights in its own right. They don't compare it to the blend. They think it's better than Penzance, but it's a great blend, really interesting blend, and that from the archives review will be up on Thursday of this week. All right, I'm gonna get out of here. It's getting colder, it's getting wetter, but until next time, until we meet again, I'm your good friend Bradley. You've been the audience. This has been Stuff and Things on a wet, windy, wild Sunday. Stuff and Things. I'll see you later.